YouTube. This is episode number 2 or video number 2. Today, I want to talk about what it means to be a good coach, but also on the other end, being a good client. Because I think a lot of people go into looking for a coach expecting the best coach or expecting a certain criteria of their coach, but then not have any understanding of what it means to be a good client and get the most out of your coaching. Um, so for myself, I've been a coach for um, just over 4 years, almost 4.5. But I've been a client for 6 years with my current coach, and I did CrossFit for 2 years. So I had a coach during that as well, but it was less one-on-one. There was no check-in, but there's still a skill set that came with that of being a client in a group setting and a group environment. A lot of the principles that I'm going to talk about today still apply to being coached in a group setting. So if you do CrossFit or you do, group fitness, this still applies to you. It's not secluded to just people who have an online coach or an in-person trainer. There's a lot that goes into being a good client. So, but also, like I said, we're going to touch on being a good coach as well, and what to look for in a good coach. If you're, thinking about getting a coach, or thinking about going into group fitness or something like that, where you are going to be coached, we'll talk about a little bit about what to look for in a good coach, because unfortunately, there are a lot of coaches in the space of fitness that maybe need to brush up on some of their qualities, some of their principles, how they treat their clients, how they give feedback, all that kind of stuff. And with all of this being said, there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of, obviously clients out there, but everyone's different. Everyone's going to fit differently with everyone, which is why there's so many different coaches, which is great. There's someone for everybody. But I try to follow these key principles in terms of what makes me, or try to make myself, a good client, a good coach, all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. So with my background of, finding my coach, let's start off with the principles of, what I looked for in a coach. So when I started getting coached, and what I saw in my time in CrossFit, because that's what I started with. That was my first exposure to having a coach. Like I said, I never grew up with any sports, anything like that. So coaching was my first, like, wow, I'm being instructed on something. I'm being taught how to do this. I'm being given guidance, constructive criticism, feedback, and that's what gave me the foundation of what to look for. So, in my time in CrossFit, I'm going to talk about one coach in particular who has had a really big impact on my life and impact on my training, my fitness, and even my coaching today for my own clients. He was one of those people that always, showed up for people 100% every session, even if he had personal things going on. He left it at the door. That was the big thing, where it was like he would make sure that like he wasn't just giving you a fist bump to give you a fist bump, or giving you constructive criticism to give you just feedback. It was like, good job today. It was actual, like, thought out, hey, I noticed this in your movement patterns. Here's what we can work on, but here's where you did really well. Everyone needs to be coached maybe a little bit differently. Everyone receives feedback and criticism a little bit differently. So that was something that stood out to me, though, that no matter what the feedback was, whether positive or negative, there was something to take from it, and something to reflect on of, okay, here's what I can do better next session. It's not just a, hey, good work, see you next time, where there's a time and place for that. Don't get me wrong. But there's always a takeaway. There's always something that we can implement on the next session. So that was the big thing there. But the other thing as well was he really, I mean, for me especially, when we had a contact or a conversation about training, it was very much along the lines of, um, making sure you're moving with quality first before you load up. And although that may be a pretty basic thing, um, as I was 18 at the time when I was being coached. Like for me, I was just like, fuck it, load it up. Let's see what we can do. Where he taught me the principle of make sure you do it well before you load it up, and then challenge the technique you've been working on, challenge the position, challenge your control of the rep, challenge your bar speed or your bar path or whatever it might be that you're working on. So those were a couple of really good things that stuck with me, where I was like, okay, um, so if I'm to find a coach that's just saying push through everything, and who gives a fuck what it looks like, it's because I mean there are people out there like that, and they get people hurt, and then they don't know how to bring them back from the injury, and so forth. Anyways, so there was much more to it, but that would be a much longer video. But those were the key things that I looked at and was like, okay, this guy gives a fuck about me, and he actually wants me to do things properly, and he actually gives a shit about my performance and my strength, my goals, my whatever. Even though I was doing CrossFit and there's the common goal of getting fitter, stronger, whatever, um, there was always intention behind the feedback, and there was always intention behind the coaching, and the even just getting personal and just checking in on, like, hey, how's your personal life? How are things going? Like, I care about you, not as just someone who's in my gym and paying me money, but someone who is just human. Um, those are big things. And obviously there is certainly a line with like a line of professionalism and being personable, like all that kind of stuff. Like, depending on your connection with your client. Not saying that your coach should be diving into your personal life by any means of, like, tell me your childhood traumas or anything, but more so, just checking in, doing, like, making sure that you're doing mentally okay, because again, that's going to affect your performance, your recovery, and your expectations on yourself, in your training. And again, it doesn't have to be CrossFit, it doesn't have to be powerlifting, it doesn't have to be anything performance based, but just that's going to affect your progress, and in the gym. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your performance at work. So it's good to have someone who checks in on those things, because we all got stuff going on. That's a part of the human experience. So if you have someone who actually genuinely gives a shit about you, that's a good sign of a good coach. So when I got into powerlifting, that gave me the foundation I needed to seek out a coach that I would jive with and who cared about those things, or cared about me as an individual, not just someone paying them money, to be coached. And although, yes, the upfront, that is the level of it, but if you have a relationship, like a coach client relationship, there's still going to be connection there. There needs to be, for a long-term coaching client relationship, because it's a service, but it's also something that is personal to you, because it is your goals, it's your fitness, it's your health, it's the way you move. It's the things that are going to affect that, right? So on some level, you're going to get personal. Um, Anyways, as I was saying, yeah, it gave me the foundation to look for a good coach, and not just go with anybody and anyone who's like, hey, I'm looking for clients. Um, so when I met my coach initially, it was like, it was we'd seen each other in the gym, and I was like, cool, like, wow, she's really strong. And then one day she came up to me and was like, hey, are you going to compete, or are you just going to fuck around, whatever? And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's very upfront, and like, I respect it. And yeah, we kind of just went from there. It was actually I think a month or maybe two before I actually had hired her, just because I was figuring out my finances. I was 20, I was young. But when I signed on with her, it was before, actually, I should say, sorry, before I signed on with her, in that 1 to 2 month period before I hired her, she was still helping me out. She was giving me, constructive criticism and helpful feedback on my lifts. And she was present when I was training. Like, she would do her own training and stuff like that. But then she would be like, hey, nice work, but like, work on this, like just whatever in a squat or something. And it was helpful. And there was no like, it wasn't like she was expecting anything in return of like, okay, like now feel obligated to sign on with me. I knew I was going to, but it was still, I didn't feel like there was like a, okay, now pay me. You know what I mean? It was just a genuine, hey, I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. And again, that was one of the core things that I had picked up from my first coach in CrossFit, where that that really struck something with me, where I was like, okay, you give a shit about my lifting. I love this. I'm going to be showing up, but you actually care before I've even paid you anything. Um, So, not saying to by any means is the client, just look for free feedback or free constructive criticism. But if a coach is willing to give that out of the goodness of their heart, that's a great sign that this person is going to give a shit about you. And then from there, as we started working together, everything was going great, talking about, when you compete, blah blah blah, you're going to do well, all this stuff. And then when my accident happened and I was handicapped, I care a lot about my training. I always have. I love it. It's one of my number one things in my life. So when it happened, I texted her not long, I think either before or after my surgery. I was like, hey, I got into an accident. um, I'm going to be out of training for a while because I broke my leg in half. So it's going to be a bit before we come back, but I'm going to come back. And man, like, she was incredibly supportive, incredibly like, um, just present throughout it, of like, hey, when you're ready to come back, we're going to get you back to it. But we're not going to be able to get you back under a barbell right away, right? So it's going to take some time. It's going to take, and setting that expectation, or that healthy expectation of, this is going to take work, but if you're willing to do it, I'll be there. So let's flip it a little bit to the other side of the client. So we've dove into what it looks like on, what part of what it is to be, a good and present coach, and what to look for. But on the client's end of things is communication. And I feel like, as basic of a thing as that is, your coach can only do so much for you if you don't communicate, if you don't let them know what's going on. Like, if I got into my car accident and then just fucked off and never reached out to my coach, and she's like, where'd he go? Like, what is going on? Like, one, that's incredibly rude. Two, she has no idea what's going on. She has no idea what my capabilities are. Nothing. So if I was to come back after 6 months, be like, yeah, I'm ready to get under a bar again, slap in the face. But also, she has no idea that I had something traumatic happen in my life. And again, that sounds like such a basic thing, but after being a coach now and having dealt with individuals who don't communicate, or they just leave and then expect to come back without any explanation of like, hey, here's why I have to take a break, here's why, this is what's happened in my life, things have changed, or I have to take a step back. Yeah, people do that, and it surprised me. And I never expected that, because again, it seems like such a basic thing, but as simple as it is, communication is the biggest thing. Because again, it's a relationship with your coach, it's a relationship with the client. It's like, on the other end of it, if your coach is like, hey, I'm going to be late getting this program out, it'll be out Sunday at 10 p.m. That's, communication right there. Or that's better than, hey, not communicating at all, and then your program being out a day or two late, and then it's like, hey, what's going on here? It's like it goes back and forth. It takes two to tango, just like in any relationship, whether it's personal or working relationship, requires communication. It's not hard. Um, so that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves in coaching is people who don't communicate, or they have things going on that, like, hey, I got poor sleep, or I don't know, got into a fight with my spouse or my significant other, and it's just been a little bit tense, and I'm just not feeling great. It's kind of like just the small things like that, like, hey, I got something going on. You don't have to give details, but like, this is what's going on in my life. Might affect things a little bit. Whatever. Just be transparent. That is all. And also communicating on the other end too, when you're sending your training videos to your client, if you're or sorry to your coach, if you're online, and you just send them videos and you're like, here, sure, like they're gonna have the videos, they're gonna know how you move, they're gonna see the working set that you did, but how did it feel? Where's your mind at after that session? How are things? So, not saying you have to give some elaborate breakdown of how the session went and how you feel about every movement, but like, for me, I'll send a training video to my coach and be like, hey, here's what I was really trying to work on. Shoulder position, hip position, blah, 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 whatever. Feels really good. What do you think? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, are we on the right page or on the right path here? Are we on the same page? Like, and at the end of the day, my coach has something to say. Cool. I'm going to listen. And my coach and I, we have conversations about training all the time. We have conversations about how things are going, and obviously that it's taken 6 years to build that rapport and build that working relationship. But if there's just nothing, and you're just giving the base, like, yeah, felt good, then your coach doesn't have much to go off of. And same thing, if all your coach sends you is looks good, thumbs up, what kind of feedback is that? Like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What might we need to work on? Like, how are we going to progress? Like I said, there's a time and place for felt good, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Certainly there's a time and place for that. It doesn't always have to be a novel of of here's how everything was. Oh, I was a little short on water. Oh, I got a half hour less sleep, blah, blah, blah. Like, like, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to elaborate on every single little thing. But when there needs to be feedback on where you're at, how things are moving, how things are feeling, maybe something that you're looking to work on in the session, let your coach know. And same thing with your coach, because how can they give a shit if you don't give them anything to work on? You know what I mean? Obviously, they're going to give a shit because you're a client, and they care about your goals. But when you're not telling them, hey, this is how things are going, then they have more to go off of, and you can just you can build off of that, and you're going to get way more out of your coaching because you're giving them information, then they can give you more information. Like, it's really a help me help you kind of scenario. And again, to me, I feel like a lot of these things might be basic human qualities to have, but like I said, after working with clients for a few years now, a lot of that stuff is not basic human qualities to have. So, being a good client is a skill. Build that skill of being a good client. Be coachable. Be communicative. Be ready to take constructive feedback. And even if you think you did really good on a set and your coach is like, hey, let's work on this, don't take it as a personal attack. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. It's what you pay them for, or at least I hope you pay them for. And that really keeps it as simple as possible, and you're going to get so much more out of it, because coaches can charge a decent amount, and get your money's worth, man. Like, talk to them, communicate with them, make make it so that they can help you get to where you want to be, if you're actually serious about getting to where you want to be. So that's all I have to say on that. That went a little longer than I expected, which is okay. But thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to hear more about coaching client relationships, or have any questions on anything like that, or have topics that you want me to go over, feel free to leave it in the comments, shoot me a message, whatever it might be. But I'm going to try and upload videos every week. I do enjoy doing this stuff, short and sweet. And I just want to get more content put out there. So if you guys have anything that you want to see from me, feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.